We have a lot of the same bone structure and a lot of skin color.
Michael does now because he's had it all done.
I refuse you to insult Michael. He's a friend of mine. I love him, and I don't like people making
me to a boy who would alter the course of my life forever. Michael Jackson. He was just 11 years old, tiny, almost fragile, clutching a coat too big for his bobbing hands, glances that lingered longer than they should, of secret nights where love and fear intertwined, and of 5 tragedies that could send shivers down the spine of even the most loyal fan. The weight of the entire label on my shoulders. Every camera followed me, every whisper in the industry carried my name, and 81 years old, Diana Ross steps forward to break a silence she has carried for more than. Fans believed their bond was nothing more than sisterly affection, a pure friendship between two eyes. His voice trembled as he whispered, "Sister Diana, I'm scared." The lights, the screaming. Was I simply witnessing the rise of a star? Or was this boy's fate entwined with mine in instant attachment a boy might feel toward a woman he trusted? He followed me around the studio like a shadow, but as time passed, I began to notice something deeper. Something that unsettled me in ways I couldn't admit to anyone. It wasn't just the bond of mentor and student, not only the sisterly affection I offered to calm his nerves before a performance. There was a look in his eyes that carried more weight than a child's gaze ever should. It was quiet infatuation. Every misstep threatened to shatter the illusion of perfection that had been carefully built around me. I was 25 years old, celebrated as untouchable, but inside I was trembling. Then, one afternoon inside Hitsville, Detroit, fate introduced half a century. Her voice trembles, not from age, but from the weight of secrets buried too long. For decades, the world saw her as the queen of Motown, a flawless diva, and a guiding star to Michael Jackson, the boy wonder who grew into the king of pop. The time I thought were just childish. I trust you. I love you, I believed. Then it was only the pure love of a boy desperate for stability. But years later, I would understand it differently. It wasn't just comfort he sought. It was a prophecy, a declaration of devotion that would follow us for life. And Michael's tiny frame transformed into something larger than life. His voice pierced through the studio walls, soaring, commanding, with a maturity and power that no 11-year-old should have possessed. The room went silent, not from respect, but from disbelief. This was no ordinary child. This was destiny. I'm afraid it's going to swallow me. I pulled him into my arms, stroked his hair, and told him not to be afraid, that I would always be there for him. He looked up at me, tears streaming down his cheeks, and whispered words that, as if it could shield him from the world. His brothers stood proudly beside him, but his eyes, those eyes, didn't look at anyone else in the room. They locked on me, wide, sparkling, as if they held the entire universe. Barry smiled with the pride of a man who had discovered buried treasure. Diana looked up at me, smiled, and transformed. The crowd roared, and I knew the world was falling in love with him, just as I had in that Detroit studio. Yet even then, something unsettled me. It wasn't just admiration in his eyes when he looked at me. There was a pull, something quiet and unspoken. A bond forming before either of us could name it. The world saw an innocent boy stepping into stardom. I saw a soul tying itself to mine. That night, as the applause thundered through the theater, I asked myself a question that would haunt me for decades. Heart raced, my palms damp, as though some invisible line had been crossed. I smiled for him, proud and supportive, but deep inside, I trembled. I was beginning to realize that this wasn't only admiration, it was the birth of something more dangerous. People at the label noticed how much time he spent with me. They laughed, calling him my shadow, my little brother. But behind those jokes was something I dared not say aloud. Unspoken, but powerful. I remember one night in 1970, after a performance in New York, when he knocked on my hotel door. I opened it to see him standing there in his pajamas, clutching that teddy bear like a lifeline. He would wait outside my dressing room, sometimes too shy to knock, holding a teddy bear as though it was the last piece of childhood he could still cling to. Icons of music. But Diana Ross now declares, the truth is far darker, far deeper, and far more dangerous than anyone ever imagined. She speaks of whispers in the dark, tremble, whole world bow down. I bent toward him, flashing the smile the world adored, and whispered a simple hello. His voice was soft, trembling, as he mumbled a shy greeting back. In that moment, I thought he was just a child. But then, the music started. The band struck the first notes of I Want You Back, hidden story of a love, an obsession, and a tragedy that the world has never heard until now. The spring of 1969 was supposed to mark a new beginning for me. I had just stepped away from the Supremes, the group that had defined my life and my identity, to pursue a solo career. The world called me the Queen of Motown, but behind the titles and glamour, I was frightened. Berry Gordy had placed in 1971, as Michael sang Never Can Say Goodbye, I sat backstage, hidden from the crowd, watching him pour his entire heart into the song. For the first time, when his eyes searched for mine, it wasn't the gaze of a boy. It was the gaze of a young man placing his soul into my hands. My hands. Why, she asks, did Michael leave her in his will as the only person outside his family trusted to raise his children? Why, years after his death, does she still hear his voice in her dreams? Tonight, Diana Ross strips away the glitter of fame to reveal the and whispered words that froze me in place. Sister Diana, I've been waiting for this day. In the early 1970s, as Motown tightened its grip on the music industry, Michael Jackson began to grow closer to me than anyone else in the label. To the world, he was just a child prodigy leading the Jackson 5-to-1 hit after another. To me, he was Little Michael, the boy who clung to my hand on stage, who called me Sister Diana, with a sweetness that melted even the hardest days. At first, I thought it was only admiration, the kind of innocent. I could feel the fire flickering. A fire that would one day grow into an uncontrollable blaze. The press adored us. Fans believed the Sister Diana bond was heartwarming. A story of a Motown star taking a child under her wing. And for a time, I convinced myself that was all it was. But every glance, every moment when his hand lingered in mine, every time his voice softened when he said my name, I felt it. What startled me most wasn't his appearance. It was his eyes. They were the same eyes that had followed me around studios a decade earlier, but now they burned with something new. Desire. That night, when the party ended and the crowd scattered, only the two of us remained in the large empty room. Michael walked toward me slowly, a nervous smile on his lips. Watched him sing, and I felt something shift inside me. I had seen talent before, but this was different. It wasn't just skill. It was a fire, a presence, a brilliance that made you wonder if he had been sent from another world. I didn't just hear a boy sing. I saw the birth of a legend. I brought the Jackson 5 onto the television stage for the first time at the Hollywood Palace. I stood next to Michael as cameras rolled and millions watched. His small hand gripped mine tightly, trembling, his knuckles white with fear. But when the conquer the entire world with Off the Wall, and soon after, Thriller. When I first saw him again at a Motown party that year, I almost didn't recognize him. Gone was the shy little boy who clutched a teddy bear in hotel hallways. In his place stood a young man, slim, stylish, with a soft afro framing a face that carried both innocence and intensity. But something forbidden was blooming between us, and neither of us knew how to stop it. By 1980, everything had changed. I was 36. No longer the fresh young singer Berry Gordy had molded, but a seasoned star carrying the weight of Motown's legacy on my shoulders. Michael was 21, stepping into manhood, preparing to do something no singer before him had ever done.